Albert Einstein said, "When I read Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created this universe, everything else seems to be so superfluous." These are the words of Albert Einstein. He is not the only one who appreciated Gita. There are many other world leaders who read Gita, who appreciated, who followed Gita, and that's how Gita has become one of the most revered book in the world. Chapter 13 is particularly important in this context. The name of the chapter is Field and the Knower of the Field, or Kshetra Kshetragya. What is field and knower of field? That has been duly explained. Shlok-wise division of the chapter is as follows. Shlok 1 to 18, the subject of field and the knower of the field properly defined. Why the knowledge of these two identities, aspects or attributes is recognized. Further, how to secure the knowledge and have the benefits of this knowledge, that has also been aptly explained. Shlok 19 to 34, the subject of Prakriti and Purush, that is matter and the spirit, that is defined. That not only the definition but the importance of knowledge of Prakriti and Purush is also explained in detail. What do people ask about chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita? First, what is the significance of chapter 13? In order that readers understand that the God is present everywhere in all the things and living beings. Lord sits in the heart of everyone. Some may name it as conscience. Soul is not responsible for your actions, but your thoughts are. Positive thoughts are sattvic thoughts, then rajasic thoughts as well as tamasic thoughts. All are present. Next question is, why is Krishna called Rishikesh? Krishna is the owner of all senses. The living entities are a part and parcel of him. Therefore, these senses are also a part and parcel of his senses. So the Lord is known as Rishikesh. The main objective of the Bhagavad Gita is also to empower people to see action in their inaction and inaction in the possible action. So this has to be understood, which is also a matter of this chapter. Now I will read the English translation of Shlok 1 to 34 of the chapter 13. The Lord Almighty said, Arjun, this body is known as Kshetra, and the one who knows Kshetra is called Kshetragya. Such is the perception of knowledgeable people. Arjun, you may consider me as the Atman or Kshetragya of all the bodies in this world. And according to me, this knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetragya without any distortion is wisdom. Now I'll explain to you in brief the Kshetra as it is, with all its characteristics, and also the Kshetragya as well as its influence. The renowned sages have described Kshetra and Kshetragya in many ways. Besides, this has also been explained through various Veda mantras and through the carefully drafted Brahma Sutra scriptures. The five elements, ego, intelligence, basic nature, the 10 senses, the mind, and the 5 vishyas, anything that is perceived by the senses. Of the 5 senses of speech, touch, sight, taste, and smell. Also, desire, joy, sorrow, and consciousness, and the life force, with all their blemishes, collectively is described as Kshetra. Now I'll explain to you the various characteristics of wisdom. The lack of pride in the personal goodness, the lack of ill actions, the quality of not annoying any living being in any manner, the generosity to excuse, the simplicity of mind and speech, serving one's Guru with sincerity and devotion, purity of inner and outer self, stability of thought process and control over the mind, the senses as well as the body. These are some of the attributes of wisdom. The lack of attachment with the pleasures of the world and lack of ego and repeated contemplation about birth, death, jara and diseases and various vicissitudes of life are other qualities which constitute knowledge. In the absence of attachment towards child, wife, house, wealth, relinquishing mamta and maintaining one's calm on the ground of loved ones and desired attributes. Unstinting worship towards me, the Almighty, through the constant yoga, the tendency to live in solitude and in a neat abode, and the lack of love for people involved in pleasure of life are more attributes of knowledge. Constancy of thought and realizing the Almighty in all core knowledge, that means Tattva Gyan, all this constitutes knowledge, and whatever is the opposite of it is ignorance. I will now describe whatever is required to be known when human beings attain peace and happiness. It is necessary to have full knowledge of the eternal Parabrahma, Supreme Soul, which is neither known as Sata nor Asata. The unknown has his hands and feet in all directions, with eyes, heads, and ears in all directions. Because of his existence of this nature, he enfolds the entire universe in him. He understands all vishyas of the senses, but in himself, in fact, is without any senses of his own. And even though he does not hold any attachment, yet he is responsible for maintaining all. He is without any gunas, yet he is able to enjoy all these. The all-pervading Almighty is present in all living beings, even though he himself is suksham, subtle, and is unknown. Though he is very close, yet he is very far and is omnipresent. The Almighty is indivisible and with one form. He is all-pervading like the sky, and yet he appears to be present in all living beings, in bits and in pieces. And he, the Almighty, in his Vishnu Roop, is responsible for maintaining all. And in his Rudra Roop, he is the destroyer of all. And in his Brahma Roop, he is the creator of all. He, the prime creator, is the light of lights and is much beyond the illusory world. He who is prime soul is worthy of knowing. The provider of core knowledge, Tat Gur, is particularly present in everyone's heart. In this manner, I have described to you briefly Kshetra, knowledge of the Almighty's form worthy of knowing. My devotees who acquire this divine knowledge actually attain me. Nature and the Almighty are both eternal. Attachment, envy, and everything born out of these three gunas are in fact born of nature. Nature is responsible for creation of karya, that is sky, air, fire, water and earth. Karya is also included in speech, touch, body, taste and smell. Nature is also responsible for creation of karam, that is intelligence, ego, mind, kshetra, skin, tongue, eyes, hands, feet and other human organs. The living beings through all these is responsible to endure joys and sorrows. The human beings present in this nature enjoy material objects and articles full of these three gunas created by nature. And the proximity of these gunas is responsible for the soul to take birth and appear as a good or a bad living being. The soul present in this body is in fact a reflection of God Himself. He, as a witness, watches over whatever the human being does. He is the best advisor. He is the supreme owner of all. He is known as Supreme Soul. The person who understands the Almighty and nature with all its core attributes, even though he carries out his duty, performs his duty, he is never born again. Many people, by meditating with pure intelligence, see the Almighty in their own heart. Many others see Him through Jnana Yoga, Karam Yoga, or in other words, attain me. However, apart from these, there are people of low intelligence who do not understand all this, but who listen to the wise and accordingly worship Him. Undoubtedly, these people who follow the advice of the wise also achieve the Almighty. Arjun, all the living beings born out of Yavan Mantra are born out of union of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. This is a fact which you must understand clearly. The person who at the time of his end sees or realizes the presence of the eternal Almighty in all living beings understands the Almighty and His indestructible nature. He holds the correct perception. The person who observes similarity in all human beings due to their presence of Almighty in all beings is observing things in the right perspective. And the person who realizes that all actions are in fact the result of the manifestations of nature and sees that the soul of anyone is not the doer, sees things correctly. The moment a person is able to watch the different moods of all human beings present within all pervading Almighty and considers all living beings only to be extension of His presence, at that moment, he realizes and attains the all-pervading Almighty. Arjun, the eternal Almighty, being Anadi and Nirguna, even though present in the body, does not carry out any work and is not attached in any manner. Just like the entire sky is formless and therefore unaffected, similarly, Atman, the body, being without any attributes, does not get affected by this body's doing or gunas. Arjun, just as the only one sun enlightens the entire universe, similarly one Atman enlightens the entire body. The difference between Kshetra and Kshetragya is understood by people who also understand the freedom of performance from nature with their eyes of wisdom. These sages achieve Prime Lord Almighty. There is no doubt about it. Realizing fully well the illusory nature of the world and one's own transient existence, one should practice detachment. This means that you remain in the present. You take routine actions, carry out all your duties towards your family, community, or state. However, you do not get emotionally attached to any person, object, or position. This is the only path to salvation. This is indeed the best way to live life in its full significance. The contentment experienced by a person who practices principle of detachment is far greater than one experienced by a person who gets involved in trivial, momentary pleasures.